One of the first places we are likely to explore in Skyline Valley is the Shenandoah Visitors Center. It welcomes us to the Shenandoah National Park and has a role to play in the Vault 63 quests. But just outside we find a statue pointing off into the distance. It's an old bronze statue of a man carrying a shovel pointing at the horizon. Could this mean anything? Walking to the statue and looking to where the statue is pointing, we do see a building off in that direction. Getting closer, we discover that it was a pre-war bathroom, and after killing some rad roaches, we can explore the men's restroom. The restroom is mostly empty, though in a crate by the toilet filled with toilet paper, we can find a perk magazine, and against the wall, inside a first aid kit, is B's Diary, page 1. October 18th, 2077. First day on the job and I'm left with the last guy's mess. The park is in such disrepair, I've really got my work cut out for me. It's gonna take me the whole year, no, maybe longer, to get everything up to standard. And don't get me started with the steel jack statues. They're first on my list of work. I wonder what they're always pointing at. Whilst leaving my room this morning, I noticed an interesting trail off to the side of the slumber mill to explore. I think I might have to sneak off tomorrow and see where it leads. So the statues are called steel jack statues. I wonder if they have any significance. We discovered what this one was pointing at after the war, but I wonder what it was pointing at before the bombs dropped. Now this note mentioned a trail off to the side of the slumber mill. And if we head to the slumber mill, we do indeed find a hiking trail off to the side. One might think that by mentioning this place in this first note, we would find the second note by going to this location and searching for it, but that's actually not the case. Though mentioning this trail off of the slumber mill is important, and we're going to need to remember it for later. But to find the next note, instead we actually have to look at the map. The ruins of the Shenandoah National Park are roughly circular, and there's a major road encircling the majority of the park. We're here at the Visitors Center. Let's see what happens if we follow this road counterclockwise. After traveling quite a while, we find a lookout point to the left of the road. Following this trail up the hill, we see that this point is guarded by a bunch of yaoguai. With the yaoguai dead, we can creep forward and explore. There's a first aid kit and an animal control first aid kit attached to the bulletin board, a bear-proof trash can outside, and then climbing some stairs, we arrive on the elevated lookout point. And here, we find the next steel jack statue. At the base of the statue is a cap stash. There's a plaque at the base of the statue, but we can't interact with it, and there's a chem cooler off to the left. Like the last one, this one is pointing meaningfully off into the distance. Getting closer to the statue, if we try to line up with what he's pointing at, well, it could be anything out there, really. Let's just head down the stairs and start walking off in that direction. If we make a straight line from the statue, eventually we bump into a stump. But it's a hollowed out stump. Inside we find dirty water, 40 caps, and B's Diary, page 2. October 19th, 2077. During my little break today, I had a venture down the trail. I didn't have a lot of time before they noticed I had snuck off. Really got an earful about that. I came across a really cute tree stump with shrooms growing all over it. I had a little rest there before I got radioed back. I'll try to cover more ground tomorrow. Alright, so it sounds like instead of using this to give us clues to show us where to find the next note, B is just casually talking about her favorite place. It's that trail by the motel that she talked about in her last note. She's been going back there day after day, and she's pointing out the things about that area that she enjoys. Even though we found this note in a stump, she's not talking about this stump in this note. She's talking about some other mushroom-covered stump back at her favorite place, down the trail by the motel. But the notes aren't giving us directions on where to find the next notes. So I guess we have to stumble upon these steel jack statues by chance. But I have a sneaking suspicion that if she started depositing these notes while walking down the main road counterclockwise and then taking off down some nature trail, if we do the same thing, we might be able to pick up her trail. Here's where we are now. This is an unmarked location on the map, and of course there's the Shenandoah Visitor Center where we found the first one. So for this strategy, we'll continue walking along the loop this way. Moving along the road, we stumble upon a number of sights along the way. We pass by a picnic area and rest stop where we find the bodies of 2 hikers, and the place is swarming with ants. There's a picnic basket on a table, but it's empty. The porta potties are empty, so we can keep going. Soon we pass through a gorge with high rock walls on either side. And shortly after leaving this gorge, we find a hiking trail off to the left, but it's right next to another unmarked rest stop. We find a picker-up truck pulling a trailer, and after drinking a Nuka-Cola on a table, we can unlock a very hard-locked fridge where we find a bunch of rations and purified water. We catch the attention of even more ants at this rest stop. After killing them, we can explore this unmarked rest stop really quickly. Here we find another dead hiker. Shotgun shells in the back of a pickup truck next to a cooler. More dead hikers by some porta potties. The locked one has the skeleton of a woman who was getting high on Med-X. The next one is empty. The last one is growing wild corn from the toilet. Yuck. It's here that we stumble upon a random encounter.
Our intentions are ambiguous. Do not be afraid.
Citizen, stop right there. In the name of the Brotherhood of Steel, we demand that you surrender 50 Capsar persons immediately.
Our intentions are ambiguous. Do not be afraid. That's a great way to start a conversation. Well, we get the impression that these aren't really Brotherhood soldiers, because we can pass an intelligence check to notice that they're not wearing the correct uniforms. However, my character didn't have high enough intelligence, so we can try to exhaust the rest of his dialogue tree. We can first ask him some questions.
We don't have all day, pissant.
How'd you guys get here?
Well, we flew here in a giant magical airship in the sky. How the hell do you think we got here? We walked! Next question.
So, he's being facetious there. The irony is that that's actually how the Brotherhood ends up traveling around a bit later, oddly enough. Well, what division are you guys with?
The, 82nd Mountain Division. Super elite. Very exclusive. You don't want to mess with us.
What cause would that be exactly?
To acquire the armaments and miscellaneous paraphernalia required to reclaim this shithole.
I actually kind of like this place.
Yeah, it's not so bad here.
Quiet, you two. Just let me do the talking.
Well, since we can't pass the intelligence check, we could attack, we could pay the caps, we could deny him, or we could try to pass a perception check to say, "Quiet, you guys hear that? I think it's the sheep squatch."
Yeah, nice try, civilian, but everyone knows the sheep squatch is a bunch of fake bullshit.
Yeah? What the hell was that?
Oh no. Barnaby, what do we do?
Shit! Run for it!
With that, Barnaby, Barry, and Buck turn hostile and run away. But they don't actually attack, so I decided to spare their lives. I heard the sheep squatch, but he never actually arrived. That's because this was an omen. The sheep squatch doesn't arrive yet, but we'll just put a pin in that for now. In this tiny little diner, we find another perk magazine, and that's about it. So with the pit stop explored, we can head back to the trail marker that we discovered just a moment ago, and follow this trail up the hill. At the top of the trail, we find our ranger stash on a tree, and 2 signs. The hiking trail continues on to the left, but there's a picnic area to the right. Exploring the picnic area first, we follow the trail until we arrive at a picnic sign next to another bear-proof trash can and a bulletin board with more first aid kits on it. Here we find a bunch of dead animals and what appears to be a death claw nest. There's even an eviscerated human in here. But thankfully, I didn't find the death claw. No idea where he could be. But this is a dead end. So heading back down the trail, we can this time follow the sign towards the hiking trail. And almost immediately we get rushed by a bunch of lost dwellers. Continuing down the trail, we arrive at another fork in the road. The hiking trail continues to the northeast ahead of us, but to the left, we find a trail leading to a viewpoint. Heading to the viewpoint first, we find ourselves at the top of this hill, surrounded by park benches. But there's a little trail leading off to the north, where we find an interesting scene. Here we see some wooden ramps and a bunch of skeletons. There's a skeleton holding a beer bottle, another one splayed out amongst more beer bottles and wine bottles. But of note, there are bike parts all over the place. A wheel here, a seat there, and then we find the remains of a bike next to this ramp. Immediately it becomes apparent what these guys were doing. They built a ramp out of plywood and they were trying to jump this gorge. While using my jetpack, I leaped to the other side, but aside from a potato plant, we don't find anything over here. However, looking down, we see something. Hopping down, we find a skeleton surrounded by bike parts. There's a rusting bike leaning against a tree. His missing tire is over there. And we see that their little ramp was at one time longer and has since collapsed. We don't find another skeleton down here, but we do find another bike. So it looks like more than one guy attempted this. Well, not the smartest way to go. But this is a dead end. So heading back to the trail, we can go back to the lookout point and follow it all the way back down to the trail split. And this time, continue following the hiking trail. After a while, we reach a turn in the trail. Looks like this trail is winding its way up this little hill. And it's here we get attacked by more Lost. At last, we crest the hill. And at the top, look at that. It's another Steel Jack statue. And here we even find a plaque talking about the statue. This one is slightly damaged by bear claws, but it's not obscuring the text, though it's so small that I found it too difficult to read. I'd love to know more lore about the Steel Jack statue and what it's supposed to represent. Aside from this plaque, which doesn't tell us anything, the only other thing I was able to find was a loading screen that says that the statues are dedicated to the young men in the Civilian Conservation Corps who built much of the Shenandoah National Park's infrastructure. The subtitle here says something like, "A noted wonder in the Blue Ridge Mountains?" A shame that it's too difficult to read. But there it is, the third Steel Jack statue. And like the last two, it's got a plaque that can't be read and it's pointing off in the distance. After looting a ranger stash on a tree and discovering a skeleton nestled into the nook of this tree, we can try to align ourselves with the statue to see what he's pointing at. And this one is easy. It looks like he's pointing at that giant stump just ahead of us. Moving that way, we find the body of a park ranger lying on a dead tree inscribed by bears. And sure enough, as we approach the stump, it's hollow, and inside we find B's diary, page 3. October 20th, 2077. Daggone, I really got chewed out for disappearing yesterday. Everyone's so stressed over the delivery of the new Steel Jack statue. I've told them 1,000 times the boardwalk is too heavy to hold a 3,000-pound statue, especially in a swamp of all places. I went back to my favorite trail to hide away from all the stress. I ventured a little further today. I followed the old wooden fencing until it reached a small rocky pass with a beautiful tree splitting the road. It was a peaceful place to have lunch. I'll try and go there again tomorrow. These almost read like directions, but to find the next diary page, we need to ignore them for now. We don't find any caps in this hollow stump, but a bunch of junk. It looks like our theory of following the road counterclockwise is working. We found the third page after traveling the road all the way here. We are east of Naked Creek at another unmarked location. So, heading back to the main road, we can continue to follow it. We pass by the ruins of a military convoy, and we gotta kill a bit of the wildlife. Looks like these guys were escorting someone important. Between the military jeeps is a black limousine. The driver is in military fatigues. There's another dead soldier on the other side of the limousine with a first aid kit near his hand. And the body of the VIP is leaning against the wheel. He had a small black suitcase, which I think is supposed to be a briefcase, but it's empty, sadly. I wish we knew who this was. Continuing along, we find a bunch of super mutants have set up shop in the middle of the road. We've got to clear them out. Looks like this used to be a raider camp before the super mutants moved in. We find a bunch of raiders here and raider decorations everywhere. On the ground near a cooler up here, we find a note from Jim. This is all the caps we could pull together. Please give us more time and we'll make up your ransom. Jim. And in a raider cage, we find the body of Jim. On his body is a ransom note. We have your idiot friend. Pay up the 3,000 caps or he's dead. Any funny business and you'll learn what happens if you cross us. Bring them to our camp before noon if you want to see him alive. Well, poor Jim, worried about his friend, paid the raiders part of the ransom money, but ended up getting killed for his trouble. But I guess their karma is that super mutants moved in and cleared him out afterwards. Continuing along, we see a Wendigo off in the distance. And eventually we arrive at a fork in the road. Now this road goes south, exiting the park, but we want to continue following this road clockwise. So instead of taking this path to the south, we'll continue east down the road towards Slumber Mill. Along the way, we get attacked by ticks. And when we get to Slumber Mill, we get attacked by Lost. But eventually we get through it. Now remember, there was that trail off to the side of Slumber Mill that B was talking about in the first note that we found. But we need to ignore that for now. I know, a bit confusing, because the one we want is just after Slumber Mill. We finally find another little rest stop to the left. Here, next to a Don't Feed the Bears sign, are 4 porta potties. One has a corpse inside surrounded by ammunition and chems. But while exploring these, I got attacked by even more ants. The rest of the porta potties were empty, though there's an animal control first aid kit attached to one of them. Here we find a trail leading to a picnic area. At last, another nature trail. Heading up the hill, we arrive at the picnic area and it's swarming with more ants, really? After looting a ranger stash, we find the next Steel Jack statue. All right. And this one looks like he's pointing off deeper into the woods. Exploring the scene first, we find a cooler on one of the picnic tables and the remains of a romantic picnic lying on this overlook. 2 men wrapped in each other's arms. Nothing more than skeletons, surrounded by moldy food. After looting a bear-proof trash can and 2 first aid kits on these bulletin boards, we see that the nature trail continues up the hill to the northwest, but we need to go back to the statue and line up with what he's pointing at. But this is difficult. It had begun raining and my vision was obscured. I tried walking straight. It kind of looked like he was pointing at this stump, but when I got there, it wasn't hollow. And then I got attacked by even more ants. But now I'd completely lost my orientation, so heading back to the Steel Jack statue, we can try to line up with him again. This time I thought I got it, but there was a boulder in my way, and it's hollowed out. Inside the hollowed out rock is B's diary, page 4. October 21st, 2077. Chief Pilker has his stooges, Haley and Matthews, keeping tabs on me. He said I should be spending all my time doing my job, and that the park is too dangerous to be just disappearing without letting anyone know. So I managed to lose the dopes. I continued along the path until I found a trail leading off to the right. I found an absolute gem, a rocky overview. I can even see the camp from here. With a little bit of fixing up, I can spend all my lunches resting here. Alright, so she's talking about her favorite nature trail again, and by following it to the end, she found a beautiful overlook that she wants to clean up and where she wants to spend her lunches. Perhaps we'll find this place someday, but setting this aside for now, we need to continue with our thus far successful strategy of following the road counterclockwise to find the next diary entry. Back to the main road, we eventually arrive at a split, but the path to the right goes to a Pioneer Scouts camp. The main road continues north. We pass by a roadblock with a bunch of dead communists inside, earth and rock moving equipment in the middle of the street, and an unmarked rest stop. Here we find a cooler and a couple more porta potties, one of which has a tato plant growing in the middle of the toilet. We get attacked by rats. And again arrive at another split. The northern road goes deeper into the park. The eastern road continues the loop, and so we'll take the eastern road. We find a parking lot and another pit stop. Here we find a ruined pre-war Nuka-Cola stand, I guess? It's an interesting looking truck that looks like it could have been converted into a stand that sold Nuka-Cola. And it's just after this that we finally find the nature trail. But here we get attacked by bloatflies. This nature trail is really close to a super mutant encampment. I tried to follow the trail without getting their attention, but I was unsuccessful. They saw me and attacked me, so I had to take them out. This is the abandoned convoy, and it's a real mess. This part of the road went through a swampy area of the national park, and much of the road has been washed away. Looks like raiders had at one point set up a camp here, a camp that has again been taken over by super mutants. There are pathways and boardwalks that connect to little islands of remaining road, but this isn't what we want. With the abandoned convoy clear, we need to now go back to the trail marker and follow the trail. It's hard to see because this trail isn't very good, but we can follow it, and eventually it points away from the abandoned convoy and traverses the swamp using boardwalks to the north. At last we find another hiking sign, and something off into the distance. What's that? The mole? Is that a person? It looks like a person wearing a mole mask. He is hostile, but I didn't want to miss out on any dialogue in case he had any. So moving forward, we can try to talk to the mole. He just starts punching us, so we can take him out. On his body is not much. So yeah. That was the mole. Back to the hiking path, we continue to follow it as it winds its way through the swamp. Eventually, we find another sign talking about the statues. That's a great sign. Continuing along the trail, we cross a boardwalk, loot a ranger stash on a tree, get attacked by a bloatfly, and stumble upon a boardwalk with a plaque that we can't read and a statue sunken into the mud. This is what B was warning them about from the very beginning. These boards couldn't hold up a 3,000-pound bronze statue, but here it is. We found it. It's sunken and it's now pointing up, but it appears to still be facing the correct direction. But before we can follow it, we get attacked by a bunch of blood bugs. Okay, with the blood bugs dead, we can try to get close to the statue and orient ourselves. He seems to be facing that way. There's a lot of stuff in our way. Could it be this rock? No. Could it be this bridge? No. Could it be that tree? No. But wait, just beyond that tree, we find a tree growing over the swamp, and lying amongst its branches is a duffel bag. Leaping up upon the tree inside the duffel bag, we find 60 bottle caps and B's diary page number 5. October 22nd, 2077, the day before the bombs dropped. The steel jack statue was installed today. What a disaster. How many times do I have to say a poorly built wooden walkway can only carry so much and then plop straight into the swamp water? I finished work early today, borrowed one of the Ranger's utility cars to transport some bits to fix up the trail leading to the overview to make it more comfortable. I've hidden a small trinket cache in a stump next to the resting area and marked it with an axe. I plan on hiding my past few diary entries around the park. Maybe it will inspire more adventurers to explore this place. So it was just after this when B decided to go back around the park and hide all of her other diary pages. But she also hid one more cache. Looks like we've got one location left to go. Oh, okay, a player logged in while I was reading that note, and his camp spawned right behind me. Gotta say, lovely looking camp fella. Anyway, sounds like we've got one more to go. But here, we deviate from our follow the main road counterclockwise paradigm, because this one is special. It's presumably the last one. It has a secret stash. She went back to hide all of these pages along the trail, which is why we find them sequentially clockwise around the main road. But this last one isn't going to follow that pattern. We have to figure out where this overlook is that she went to go clean up. Well, the best clue we have from B's diary pages is what we learned in the very first one, that she saw a nature trail by the motel that she thought looked nice and she wanted to explore it. We found the entrance to that path earlier. It's time to finally head there and explore it. Along the way, we fight mongrels, bloatflies, deadly wolves, red stag, and... oh no! A sheep squatch! Fighting mole miners. Those fake Brotherhood soldiers didn't get scared off by a sheep squatch. They cursed me with one. It's not that the sheep squatches are hard or deadly. It's that they're freaking bullet sponges. It'll take me 10 minutes of attacking this thing consecutively before it'll die. And it was a legendary one. But eventually, I killed the sheep squatch. At last, we arrived at the motel and found again the head of the hiking trail. It also leads to the summer camp where the Pioneer Scouts were staying. We follow along the trail until we arrive at a picnic area with more ants, really? Here we find more dead hikers. Man, these ants are really ruining a lot of picnics. A ranger stash on a nearby tree, but the trail continues to the northeast. Here we find a Jeep with a trailer. Could this be the chief's car that Bee said she borrowed to move supplies to the overlook? And sure enough, just beyond this Jeep, we find a hiking trail off to the southeast. This has to be it. Taking the trail, we go up and up until we arrive at a fork in the road. We find one sign here. Easy. Okay, so I guess both paths summit this hill, but the left path is the easy trail and longer trail, making the right path the harder and shorter trail. Well, I want to explore both. We'll start by taking it easy. Turning left, we round a corner to find a ranger stash, a staircase, and another sheep squatch! God! It's a curse! I'm telling you, they cursed me! "30 frickin' minutes later." The sheep squatch is dead, and we can again continue along the easy path. The trail goes down and rounds a corner to the right. It then goes up, and here the trail ends, but at the top of the trail we see Oga. Oh no. I fought one of these things during my live streams, and they're not very dangerous, but like the sheep squatch, they're bullet sponges. I really didn't want to have to attack him again. I'm guessing this is a random encounter because there were some settler hinterlanders attacking it, but of course they were doomed to die. Well, maybe if we explore the hard path, this Uga will be gone when we get back. So we retrace our steps. Down, then up, then down again, and around until we arrive again at the easy sign. And this time we'll go right, down the hard path. Following it up and to the right, we see that it's not that hard really. And it's much, much shorter. We again arrive at the overlook, but sadly this Uga didn't go away. I was therefore forced to kill it. And 30 minutes later, after expending over 100 rounds of ammunition and not getting hit once, Uga was dead. And of course, there was nothing of interest on his body. So, we made it. Exploring around, we see the bodies of the settler hinterlanders. There's a bear-proof trash can, a ranger stash on a tree, another bulletin board with another first aid kit, a sign that talks about the black bear, a book under a bench that we can't read, a sign that talks about dinosaur footprints, another sign buried in the middle of the road. Weird place for a sign. But there's no statue, and of course there wouldn't be one. This was her personal favorite spot, her overlook, where she went to after hiding all of the other notes. So there's not going to be a statue pointing us in the right direction. But remembering the note she left, she gave us a clue. She said that she hid her stash in a hollowed-out stump that she marked with an axe. Well, what are the odds that an axe stays in a stump for over 20 years? Climbing this rocky outcrop, it provides us a beautiful view, but there's no stumps down here, which means that we need to head back to the tree line close to the park benches. Here we see something unique. There's a photo opportunity. A little mole ranger guy holding up a pioneer scout by the scruff of his neck, and we can hop out of our power armor, crawl behind the Mow the Mole photo board, and take a picture. Oh, now that's a pose. There we go, looking good. Put trash in its place. Is Mow the Mole picking up the kid and calling the kid trash? Am I therefore trash according to this board? That's wrong right there. That's not nice. Stupid Mow the Mole calling me trash. Near to this photo board, we see a couple of stumps right next to these handrails. And sure enough, one of them has an axe lodged in it. Inside the stump is Bee's diary, page 6, and 52 caps. That's it. The big stash was a Cap's stash? Well, cool, but this was before the bombs dropped. Caps were worthless at that point. If she was really hiding a stash, it should have been pre-war money, because that had value to her, not caps. Caps didn't become a currency until after the... I gotta stop thinking too hard about these things. Reading the diary page. Congratulations, you've found Captain B's treasure in this wonderful overlook. Claim your prize and always keep adventuring. Well, okay, nice prize. I mean, caps are great, but it brings up lore issues. I mean, is the axe legendary or no? No, it's just a multi-purpose axe. All right, well, that's the prize. Sadly, B's story doesn't end here. Well, it does. Not exactly here, but close to here. Right next to this stump is a fallen log, and underneath the log is a skeleton holding a note. B's final note. The ground shook so hard, knocking me over, and as if my luck couldn't get any worse, the doggone tree pinned my legs. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I should have listened to the chief. I hope someone finds me soon. I'm so hungry and cold. Because she went on an adventure alone into the national park, she was by herself when the bombs dropped on October 23rd, 2077. She was by herself when a tree fell on her and pinned her to the ground. Moral of the story, always listen to park rangers. They know best. And if you have a job, do your job. You're not getting paid to sightsee, B. Well, she must not have had a ham radio or a walkie-talkie or anything like that, but she had a pencil and she had some paper. And so while she was pinned under this log, she wrote a little note expressing her inner thoughts, as do so many people in the Fallout universe for some reason. And that is the full story of B's diary and the Steel Jack statues in the Shenandoah National Park. Now that we're here, we understand why this was B's favorite location. It truly provides us with one of the best views of the national park. So I guess we shouldn't complain too much about the caps and the stump, because it wasn't about the reward, it was about the adventure. It was about the journey and the friends we made along the way.
We don't have all day, pissant.
Thanks as always for watching, everybody. I plan to make more Skyline Valley videos, and if there's something in the new DLC that you want me to check out, let me know in the comments below. I publish new Fallout videos each and every week on my channel, so if you don't want to miss out on my next one, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. If you have already, but you still feel like you're missing out on YouTube notifications, consider following me on Twitter at Oxhorn. I update Twitter manually with every new piece of content that I publish. I've got a plush for sale. My one-of-a-kind plush is ready to ship, but my inventory is limited. I've only got a handful left, so if you want to make sure that you get one before I run out, snag one today. I've got a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and a wide array of colors. You can find them on smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, stickers, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in another way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. YouTube members get little badges next to their names in the comment sections of my videos, and they gain access to ox emojis that they can use in my video comments and in the live chats of my live streams. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more Fallout videos.